only for the short term, So I did reduce a couple of my payments because I know people are, I'm going to be in a hard place next month. This month I was okay, but next month is going to be the hard month, and the economy is gonna go down, really.
Yeah.
I know that. I can predict that.
Yeah. Well, I know you and your husband had to work through some of the most difficult times during the housing crash.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you're still working your plan and helping others to do the same.
Oh, yeah. We lost in 2008. We lost over 100, almost 100 units, and I don't have that now, but I don't know. I don't want to lose what I have, so I'm being proactive. I want to keep the people that I have, even if I have to renegotiate with them on a payment plan for whatever they need for the next 2 months. We can tack it on in installments when they do get their jobs back. Because what can I do with an empty house? Nobody, wants an empty house. That means you have to repair it and all that stuff. But, so
yeah,
that's tough.
So that's tough. So what happens now? I know there was some kind of mandate that I knew some people that were having to evict before this even started. Before the COVID-19 crisis, there were, and it does sometimes happen that there's a tenant that just for whatever reason doesn't want to do or meet you the other half of the way, and you've got to do something. So I've known some people who were in the process of that, and then they couldn't evict. I'm not sure. I didn't have time to really talk. Do you know what's going on there?
Right. At the end of March, the Florida Supreme Court put down several mandates, and one of them was you could get your judgment from the judge, but you could not get a writ of possession if it was due to the virus. Like non-payment of rent because you lost your job, something like that. However, the date for that is tomorrow to be lifted if it doesn't get extended. So it was until April 17th. And a lot of my landlords have already gotten their judgments in the mail, but they could not get the writ of possession until April 7th, after April 17th, which is going to be Monday. So, however, for say termination of lease, which has nothing to do with the virus, but this tenant never left after termination of lease, that has nothing to do with the virus, and you might have already gotten your judgment. The courts are still not giving writs of possession. So after the 17th, which is Monday, they can hopefully go and get their writ of possession. Now, that means the sheriff is going to be overloaded with all these hundreds of writ of possessions, So it's going to take a while to process those writs of possessions. And that's the first one. Now, after that, the governor did a proclamation on April 2nd and said for the next 45 days, we could not do any evictions due to the virus. So, however...
So we're really talking about two things. So the people that were evicting before the virus and have their writ, but they still couldn't get it served. And
no, they don't have the writ. They have a judgment.
I got it. Okay. They had the judgment, but I've got it. And then the people that have had issues that have come up directly related to COVID-19. Like
non-payment of rent.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That they cannot even get the judgment yet.
Right. They cannot get yeah, right. They cannot get a judgment yet.
But all of this has to be documented. They have to, the tenant has to, or not. I mean, I don't know exactly how that works. How does that work, Jerry?
Well, see, the tenant would probably call for a hearing and say, they should have their documents in hand. I worked for, say, this restaurant here, and they're closed. They closed their doors, April 1st, and I can't work. I'm a waitress or I'm a cook, and I have no work, or I'm a supplier and I have can make no deliveries, that kind of thing. And so they have cause that they are related to the virus and they cannot pay their rent. So they are justified that they would not be issued a judgment. And so, however, there's another way to do a termination of lease, which would not be cause for rent. Say you had a bad tenant that you thought was dealing drugs, which is very hard to prove. GERRI would use a termination of lease, which is not related to the virus. And I've got someone who's doing that, looking for that kind of a judgment for a termination of lease.
Okay. So I know there's this thing out there called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance. And my understanding is if you have an entity that acts as a landlord, that entity is eligible for an SBA loan and can apply for this. Do you know anything about that? Is that correct?
There's two kinds of loans. One is the paycheck program, a PPP, if you have employees, and you should use that one if your gross income is more than $40,000. If you have an employee's paycheck stuff, if you don't have employees, you should use the Small Business Emergency Fund of $10,000. And yes, I've got there are several articles that are written up about that. You should Google the Small Business Administration Emergency Fund on that for the $10,000 loan.
Okay, so Jerry, we're probably getting close to the end of our show. What would be the single most important thing you'd like for the audience to take away with them today?
I'd love to invite them to my meetings on Monday. They'd have to either email me or call me if that's okay to share.
Yes, that would be, no, definitely. So if they want to reach out, what would be the best way for them to do that?
They can text me. I don't take calls from strangers, but they can text me at 941-914-8028. Text 941-914-8028. And it's Gerri, GERRI, and the I keeps me out of the boys' room.
Okay, I hear you.
Okay. And my email is G as in George, HOLMES at landlords with an S, landlordsonline.com. Landlordsonline.com does background checks too for landlords.
Oh, that's good. That's very good to know. Well, okay, so this has been very informative, and I hope our audience thought we shared something today that can help them look at how they might work to build a positive and productive relationship with their tenants. Because, as I always advocate, home ownership is the easiest, most effective way to build wealth. I invite you to tune in. If you've missed anything that was covered in today's, or you want to hear what we covered today, you can go to Society Bites Radio and look for Real Estate Hotwire.
I also have a website, www.landlordsassociation.com.
Yes, and they'll be able to find that. We'll have that on Society Bites Radio. We'll have that in there on their. They'll be able to find you by going to Real Estate Hotwired. And I am Maggie Rose March. This has been Real Estate Hotwired, an informed voice for the novice investor, a voice of reason for the seasoned investor. Thank you for listening. And please, if you missed any of this broadcast or are interested in knowing more about our guest, please find us on societybitesradio.com, part of the Radio Ear Network. Thank you so much, GERRI.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you have any questions or comments, please call me, Maggie, at MaggieRoseMarch.com, or our production coordinator, Mark Stewart, via email to realestatehotwired@gmail.com.
This has been Real Estate Hotwired with Maggie Rose March.